right, friends, the fair is over and we've got a lot of work to catch up on. So we're going to try to get started right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Rusty Oliver Man, and I want to work on that round baler, which started out up here and then has migrated back farther and farther as other projects came to be. This tractor ended up sitting here because imagine a weary fairgoer just about wore out over the fair, driving this tractor home only to come home and find out that there's cows where they're not supposed to be. So I just took it over the fence and went out there and chased them away from where they needed to be. And then, of course, at the time it was time to get out, it started pouring rain. So I also got soaked, and that was fun. So I just left this here and whatever, but now it's actually in my way, so we need to move it. The sad thing is, these batteries have left the chat. They just do not hold a charge very good. I should probably try to put them on the charger, but I don't like this setup that is going on here, and we are going to change it at some point. We'll have a video working on this thing, making it a little bit better in different ways. I have to get some supplies, and the place that I usually get supplies is out, so when they order that stuff, we'll get it done. But I'm going to switch to the batteries with the studs instead of the posts. And the reason is because that is easier to put a battery cutoff on, because you've already got, you know, everything is just studs. And when you got twin batteries, it's easier to deal with when you got studs, because you can put two of them on one terminal and screw it down. Whereas these, if you want to connect in series, you have to get an end, and then you have to get a double end and crimp it and then go. And what I don't like about this setup is they've actually run two hot cables all the way up here to the starter. So you've unnecessarily got two cables rubbing and going bad, and potential for arcing out on the frame and what have you. And that's the way this tractor was when it was brought down here. I mean, purchased from the last guy who had it before me. We never touched that. I couldn't remember if we'd put batteries in it or not, but we didn't, because these batteries are old enough that it was before he had them. So yeah, because they say 2014, and that would have been before he had it. So we never touched the batteries, so I never went into that. Or if I would have had to change batteries in it, I probably would have told him at the time, hey, let's switch it over to like what I'm talking about right now. And then we could have put a battery cutoff on it, which is another thing that's going to happen, because we need to be able to shut these off. And I don't know if I'm going to go. I really don't want to drill into stuff, but I might. In this case, I might drill and put a bracket hanging down here to bolt that battery cutoff on, just because there's no good place here to go out of the way. You know, I thought about making a bracket coming off one of those bolts and putting it here, but then you've got unnecessary cable running. You know, you'd have to have it running both of them back this way, because the ground, if you wanted to put it where the factory ground place is, it's back there. I don't know. I think it would be better if it was right here, tucked out of the way. So I'll probably drill one hole, or figure out how I want to do that. If I'd put it up against this and then drill one hole, it would probably be pretty stable. But that's still in the thought process. A lot of what happens here, which you don't realize, because some people get frustrated and say, you don't ever do anything or whatever. I don't. A lot of times I think about stuff for a good while to decide if that's really what I want. So in this case, I'm going to be thinking on this. I have a plan of what I think I'm going to do, but then I don't know if that's really what I want to do. So anyway, I'm going to think on that a little bit, and I don't have the stuff anyway right now, so we'll do. But it's definitely going to happen with one cable for hot all the way back. And then, like I said, stud batteries, because then it's easier to put a jumper cable between one positive to one positive and go. And this old horse, they really do kind of need the cranking capacity of 2 batteries. I mean, 1 battery, yeah, you'll probably start it in the summertime, but I don't know. It's just, that's the way it was made, and that's the way we're gonna go. Also, as revisited, I think I'm gonna try to put a step here so that I could, if I want to get up and do fuel, that'd be fine, but I don't think I'm gonna buy the double step. That would be kind of overkill. I'll just get one of the other style ones, since we don't have a door there. That was a flaw. Some of the cabs did have 2 doors, but I don't know if it was, we kind of were discussing that Oliver guy and I, to decide whether the 2 doors came later, or whether they had a run of 2 doors and then they went back to this, or whether it was just something random. I don't know. I don't know if we ever really figured that out. We talked about it a little bit. All I know is I haven't got 2 doors, and that's kind of inconvenient because you got to climb up and reach over. And so the long story short of this, what I'm working up to is I want to move this out of the way, but I'm probably going to have to use the jumper box, which means I have to carry it around, put it on, then I have to come back around here, climb up, turn the key, go back around, shut it off. When if you had 2 doors, you could just reach through that door, turn the key, and live your happy life. And you can't do that here. So, and that is one bad thing about this, friends. If you're a big boy, that's a pretty narrow opening to get through. Pretty narrow. Will you run? Hey! I guess we started it soon enough after running it. Maybe if I'd run it every day, I could keep it where it would start. The batteries charged up. I also learned something interesting about this muffler, which is probably kind of sad, but after sitting out all week, it did not appear that that muffler kept the water out of the tractor, because when I first started it, it blew water out of that muffler like crazy. So I don't know if our ting is not tinging the ting, or if we need to, I don't know yet, but it's gonna sit inside most of the time. So the fair is the exception where it sits outside. So we'll put this in the barn and that'll keep it dry. But we want to play with it, so yeah. Another thing I noticed is I'm not sure that our fuel gauge is working, because it seems to always be about right there, no matter how much fuel I put in it. So that may be another thing for another day. Another thing for another day that we have to figure out. That's fine. Sure. People keep asking, are you going to put duals on this? Well, I wasn't, but I could. I've got the cones that adapt to the 9-bolt. Bolt them on there, and then it comes down to a 9-bolt thing here. But I don't have any 20.8 38 duals. I'd have to hunt some up. That's fine. I really like the factory. There was a style that bolted on, and it had a big cast center that came out like this, and then it had other blocks, and you just put the rim on, and I don't know, I always thought those looked kind of cool, but that's a lot of weight for no reason. I see so many things I want to fix, but I'm trying to focus. I want to get stuff done, And I want to get that baler done so he can put it in the shed and I don't have to see it anymore because I'm over it. I want that done, over with. He can put those bars in that we got, but the rest of it, I'm going to weld on that jack, fix the hydraulic lines, fix that broken pin for the tying, and see about mounting those oilers on there. And then that baler should be good to go again and live his happy life, you know? Oh. Well, now, always choke, even in the summer. Battery on this one. Oh, more tree limbs. That's nice. That's what we needed. We needed more storm damage. We need that. We haven't had our fill of that this year yet. Okay. Whoa. Sleep. I just realized that I fenced myself in for something I was gonna do. I think I can get I don't know. I'll figure it out here in a minute. That's fine. You don't need to see my struggles. But yeah. And the thing that's gonna hold me back here first is that I want to put a jack on this. And we're going to jack that off. Take that jack off. Now, I don't look forward to this because it's going to be a struggle bus. But I don't know that there's anything really holding this jack on other than that 1/4 inch part of a bolt and some imagination. Yeah. But step one is going to be this jack delete. We got to get that bolt pulled out, and then this whole ring will come off of there, and then the whole jack will come off, and that'll be fine. And then we're going to weld the other jack up here on this. I don't know if we're going to go on this side of this loop or if we're going to go back here on this side of this loop. We need to do it in such a way that the tires won't hit it when you turn, because I guarantee you somebody, not naming who names, will hit it if they aren't paying attention, and that could be me. So yeah, but I think we need to get, maybe the red pliers will get this out of there for us, because it can only be part of a bolt that's broken off or never had anything put on it and just drove in, because there would be no way you could get a nut on it or anything the way it is right now. All right. Oh, it's gonna be a struggle. I mean, we're gonna have to try to like thread it out. I don't really know what was choices were made here, I guess, on the day that was put on, and it was probably done in frustration, because most things are. Oh. stud pliers aren't really working great for this task today. Do I need to go one click tighter? I don't think that just turning it backwards is going to get it out of there, but maybe it will. The alternative would be to find a long punch and try to come up from the bottom and drive that out of there, but I'm saying what was happened is this was just bludgeoned in there. Would be my guess based on how everything looks. This is not the factory specific way that it was supposed to be installed. Okay, well, we're making some progress, but I wonder if a guy would get a socket on it and something and pry up while he turns, if he could get that to pop out of there. Because that's going to be step one of this endeavor, which I don't look forward to this at all, but hey. Let's try with, we're going to try this, and we're going to try this under there, like such. There. I bet it goes most of the way down in there. It just wasn't long enough to go all the way through, so he just hammered her home, would be my guess of what has taken place here. Come on. What the heck? Come on. Come on. No! Tools, you don't need to fall. There. Yeah. Hammered her home. Now will this, will that come off of there? Come on. Jack, delete. I'm sure this is a great design in its day, but its day has long since passed. All right, here is what we are going to replace with, similar to what's on my baler. And I kind of feel like it's going to end up like in that neighborhood there. It would probably be easier though if I would extend it. Is that too many? No. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a tricky dicky here, because we got to make sure that it's going to be level-ish, and what we got to level it by is that, because of stuff and things. This should be parallel to that or close. I think it's going to wind up about like that, but of course we have more problems. That shield behind there is going to be in our way, so I guess we will take that off of there, or will we just bend it and hope that life forgives us for not doing it the right way? But we got to have her tied up against there while we're welding, or we're going to have nothing but troubles. Actually, maybe that shield isn't really hurting it. It was just the way that it was acting. So what's going to take place here then is we need to do a lot of cleanup prep work here, which I can probably take care of that shield while I'm at it with that, actually. A little bit of angle grind action. But we need to clean this area all up. We need to clean the paint off of that. And then we need to do some vertical stick welding, which I just dearly love. 70/18s should do the trick. and we'll try to get that mounted on there. And that'll be hopefully the most difficult of any of the things that are going to transpire here today, because that will require, I got to get that generator up here to run the welder, because I still don't have my electric hooked back up, and that needs to be a priority too. But it's just one of those things where there's only one of me and I can't do it all, so it's just gonna have to, yeah. The other difficulty of today is going to be right down in there where I gotta try to get this bracket off of there. It does bolt in. Maybe we should pull that off of there now so that we can see what trouble we're gonna have. But what I gotta do is I gotta put a new pin in here. That pin's broke off, and that was what holds the cylinder for doing the hydraulic tying, and so that ain't gonna fly. So this bracket is bolt-onable, but the question is, friends, is it gonna come out after all this time? That is doubtful. I imagine there will be cutting and welding and crying and sadness all along life's way. You can kind of see it in there. I mean, I don't know. Everything we do has to be the most difficult way, you know? We can never just things work. It always has to be something. So let me get that impact and we'll see if we can pull that off too, so that way when we're welding, we're ready to go. If we have to do that, and I don't have to keep firing up welders and what have you. I guess I'll let you sit there and see if that looks like something that you could do. Oh, we're gonna throw all the fasteners around, or the sockets around. Can I reach this? That's too big. Okay. Let's try this. Bingo, Yahtzee, whatever you want to say. Choose your favorite board game title to put in there. Risk, Canasta, I don't know. Oh, guess what? That's a through bolt. That one too. I figured that some of these would be threaded, he says as he struggle busses. Okay, there's one. There we go. Okay, let me grab another wrench to try to hold the backside, because I thought that was welded on there where you didn't have to do that, but it's not. Let's see how we're going to do this. Everything is not in the way, the correct way. If I move the tie arm down out of my way, that will help. Awesome. All we had to do is drop all of the stuff. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it. I will assume that what I dropped was a lock washer. What else? One more. There's a washer on that too. Was there one over here? Yes. Everything had big flat washers. Now, will this bracket come out? Oh yeah. Crusty, rusty, and it was underneath of that. You got to remember to put that back, because that is important. So only I could have this luck where a pin breaks off. And look how good they welded it. They welded it so good that it's going to make it absolutely impossible to get that busted off of there. It's going to take much grinding and sadness. I thought about just trying to drill through there, but I have to have a good flat surface to put the next pin on, or what I'm going to do. And I guess what I'm going to do is put on just put a grade 8 bolt in it maybe. And so can I get this without throwing everything down, please? So I can illustrate my point. Let's just throw that on the ground because we don't need it right now. So this is going to be in there as such. And I think I got plenty of room because that never should... Everything's tweaked a little bit. That bar in the baler needs to be bent a little bit, but there's enough clearance here where it never should interfere. Like, I could put a bolt through from underneath and put like a lock nut on it up top and just tighten her down till it feels right. I mean, that could be the solution that I come up with, provided that there is actually something that would be the right size and feels correct in there. The other solution, I suppose, would be to just not worry about life and just put that in there and just weld the dickens out of it. But I don't like that idea. I much rather would start over and get that what I want, because that ain't gonna be no fun, friends. And this weird shaped bracket is just gonna make it a thrilling affair to get that off of there. Wouldn't it be nice if they had made this bracket mirror shaped and then I could just flip it over and use the other hole that hasn't ever been molested? That would be nice, but it ain't gonna happen. So, how do I want to go about this? He says to himself. And another fun wrinkle in life's plan: I am out of welding gas, so I can't. Well, I may not be totally out, actually, now that I think about it. I might have some on the cart, but the truck is out. So what I could do is try to cut that out and just torch it along here and get rid of most of it, and then take a punch and just drive out whatever stays behind, and then I would have that mostly out of the way, and then I could probably get a brand new grinding wheel in there and smooth it out a little bit. That is a possibility of a thing that a guy could do if he was motivated. So yeah, so that would take care of that problem. Then, if we're gonna continue our theme of problems, somewhere down here is a valve which I had to remove so that I could get the hose off, because the hose would absolutely not come out. Absolutely could not get that hose broke loose out of this valve. And okay, so what happens here is this sits underneath here like such, okay? And what has not been happening that should be happening, this valve was not mounted down to anything, and that ain't right. It shouldn't be up there vibrating. So I wonder if over the years the bolts vibrated out. I wonder if that was threaded in there, which I'm supposing we could find out right now. Let's just move all the stuff. Let's throw the bracket to the ground so we lose that. All right, so you got too hot, but what I was getting at here is I wanted to see if there was holes for that thing to mount in, and the bolts just came out. The gearbox sits right on top of where we need to be, but if I reach under there, it feels like there's a couple nuts that are welded, in fact, to the frame, which would mean that in theory there's a couple places there where a guy could like those two holes, tighten that valve up to the frame. So we're gonna have to investigate that possibility as well, because that just is not, it's just not, friends. We can't have that. That valve has been hanging loose, and how it's never gotten caught and just wadded up in there, I will never know, because things happen, you know. So that's going to be one thing along life's way as well. And I don't even know where I want to really start, you know. I really want to start with that jack, so we could get that up, and then that way if we had to unhook it, we could. But then we also need to get that bracket wherever it fell to. We need to get it ready to go so we could do that. So let me see what I can accomplish there. I'm about ready to take a lunch break anyway, I think. And then we'll sort it out. I'm just looking her over, friends. We had a lot of trouble this year with this stuff. Like, it just... Okay, sure, fall down, Jack, that's fine. Make sure you bend the handle too, because that would help me out. I don't know, this poor Baler, it had a lot of problems this year, and some years it doesn't. Some years it bails every bale with no problems, but it's just I don't know. Some of the things, unless you're looking for it, you're not going to know that that's about to cause you a problem. And then if you don't clean it off real good, you're not going to know either what's what. So that's part of our issue as well. Then the final thing we will do is going to be the fabrication portion. And I don't know how we're going to do that. This metal is thinner than, like, my baler actually I think has a bar that it's screwed into, but we're going to figure out where to mount these oilers somewhere in this neighborhood. And then we got to figure out a way to drill through here somewhere to make it where they would actually hit the chain. You know how they work. They don't put out any oil until the door goes up, and then they run down into the tubes, and then they're supposed to hit the chain part way, you know, like, so every time you open the door it oils a little bit, a different part of the chain. Whereas this baler was designed where before you start, you just pour some oil through that hole and do the thing. But I don't know, we're gonna retrofit a little bit, and I'm not sure where we're gonna do that at, because this baler is designed a little different than mine, but we'll figure out something. Anything is better than nothing, friends. You know, I don't know if we're gonna try to go like right there would maybe be a good place to go through. That's another one where we're going to have to do some thought before we decide. My baler has a hole cut, and then it has a piece of angle iron welded in so that it makes like a trough, and then the hose lays in the trough, and then it just shoots down in there and goes along life's way. I don't want to weld anything in there that's going to catch the chain, but I do want to try to get the oil where it needs to go. And it's hard to see anything with the door closed like it is, but I need to see where in relation to, like, here should be an idler that the chain is following behind the door. So I need to see, what I'm getting at is I might have to put my deal out a little bit to get it to hit the chain. That's what we're gonna have to do. I want to try to figure out the best way without having to drill more holes than necessary or whatever. And then you can see, like, over the years when the cable broke and the spring let loose all at once, look at what it did to these adjustment plates. it totally made them, yeah, like that. So that's a lot of power the old spring's got there, because it's just a big giant spring behind this cover, which is very loosely attached. We should probably see about, maybe there's 2 bolts twisted off, and we could get those out. And Then this bottom door is not hooked up anymore, and that lets fines and stuff out. We should probably hook that up, get that fixed. I just don't want to look this thing over too hard because I see so many things that do not make me smile. But I'm not the brains behind this outfit, so I'm just going to do the best things I can and then try to send it down the road. Like if it was me, I would probably start replacing hoses like here, because these have never been replaced. They still have factory paint on them. And I would probably say like this one is about on its way out. So maybe I'll just do that anyway. And then just tell him that's how life is. This has been bent. That's not exactly safety. We should probably get that straightened out so that you could actually use that whenever you need to take stuff off. I don't know, friends. I'm just saying there's a lot of, if you really pick this thing apart, there's a lot of work that could be done to it. See, this side has had, what have we done here? Oh, I know what we did here. That steel line went bad, so they made a thing. But I think we need to, I think it's time to replace these hoses. Look at that one. So maybe I'll replace them, and in that case I could get this one made a little shorter to take out some of that extra length that we don't need. Look at that. That's about to go. We're doing that. I don't care what anybody says, that's gonna happen, because I've had enough of that. I've rebuilt these once over Life's Way, and they're probably ready for it again. And the reason I rebuilt it was because it wouldn't keep the door shut. As the bale got bigger, the door would keep opening, and you had to keep hitting it to keep holding it closed. Every so often you have to bump it. Well, then finally it got to where it just, you had to practically hold it all the time. So yeah, so I have rebuilt those at one time or another. But yeah, so anyway, moral of my story is there's a lot of work to do, and we need to get after it. And I need to get the generator up here so I can do some welding. But I think we decided the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to do that off camera, is get that pin out of that bracket so that I'm set up and ready to go with whatever I need to do. Because it's frustrating when I have to stop to do something when, you know, it would be a lot easier to just go for it. Get it all done, go for it. And I'm just thinking about, like, I need to clean this out and see how bad it is. But I've welded on the floor before because it was pretty bad. And I know he was talking about he wants to replace those floor chains at some point. So that's a very involved deal. These balers had a lot going on. Like, there's a lot of pieces that can wear out and you have to maintain. That's one thing about, like, the later balers. They got a little bit simpler and less things going on. Like mine just has a drum in the bottom to keep the bale spinning. This one's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 floor chains, and you have to keep those maintained. The sprockets maintained. There's channels on the floor that wear out. You got to keep them maintained. You got to. There's just so much that you got to do maintenance wise on these. That, yeah. And then when you, I mean, like, it's not been cleaned ever, and that needs to be done. We should probably power wash it before we send it back so that we could make sure that it's not gonna, I don't know. Let's get it back together and we'll worry about stuff like that later. But maybe I should worry about that now, because if I'm gonna weld on this, what's the chances this will be on fire? Well, there's pretty good chances. Maybe I should have a bucket of water handy. Or alternatively, I did buy a new hose. I was going to use maybe at the fair if I had to have it. But I could put that on my hose and get it out here. Anyway, you're getting too hot, but what I'm saying is I can have that hose ready. And I bought a regular garden sprayer type thing. So I could just leave the water on and have it here. And then if I need it, I can quickly spray and put out a fire. So I'll probably have that going too, just to be sure that we don't burn her all down. But that's my plan as it is. So I'm going to take a quick break here and try to get some stuff ready, and then I'll bring you back when we're ready to make things happen. Oh, friends, productivity today is low. Still trying to get back on normal life schedule after that fair. Buddy the dog, you've been taking a nap? Snoozing? That's cool. Anywho, so I thought I heard the old UPS truck a while ago come in here, so we're gonna check this out. I thought to myself, what could this be? Because I couldn't remember. And then I remembered that just the other day, I found something on the internet and I ordered it. Maybe it won't come out of the box. Here we go, friends. It's a seat assembly for a 550. As you recall, the diesel 550 has a crap seat on it. So here we've got one. And the seat's pretty good. And I might actually, even to be nice, I might actually put this on that customer's 550. And I might just bolt that right on there and then call him and say, come get this tractor, I'm done. However it sits, because that thing turned into a rabbit hole of sadness we didn't need. He can rebuild a seat himself. I started to do his, but then found out that it was so wore out that it was pathetic. But his seat pan would work on my other one, so I may just do that. And then we can kill two stones with one bird there. But I've looked high and low for another one of these, and they just don't come up that often. And so this place, I don't know what the deal is. I've checked there before and they didn't have any, and then the other day, magic, there it is. So cool. All right, friends, we're going to attempt this. I've determined through some strategic turning and stuff that we want to have the jack right here, because if we have it here, the wheel will probably hit it. So that's what we'll do. Up in that area there, but we got to do some cleaning and grinding here first to make this happen correctly. Let's get our angle grinder hooked up here. Not graceful, but it'll work. We're going to want to be right about there. I think. I even bought this clamp, which I don't know if it'll help us or not. But I thought, hey, if we could possibly use it to hold this thing solid for us, and more power to it. The old welder won't run off the generator without tripping the thing. So you gotta wait and do it again. All right. I think we're going, whoop. Use them over here. All right, friends, that was quite the ordeal. Just because this setup doesn't work very good, the generator, it'll shut off if you got the welder turned up too hot. So there's a lot of starts and stops, but each side has 3 passes on it. And I'm fairly confident that it's never coming off of there. You know, it lifts the baler pretty effortlessly and seems to hold her solid. I mean, time will tell, but I think that it's gonna be fine. So I just wish it looked a little more pretty, but that's the way she goes. Vertical stick welding is not really much fun. But if you use a fast setting rod and you do multiple passes, usually you can get it to do the thing. And it's definitely thick on there. It's just not. I also had trouble where I couldn't get in after the fact with like the angle grinder or the wire wheel on the angle grinder and really clean it up. I could get this side pretty good, the other side not as much. It's a little bit not as pretty, but like I said, I think it's gonna do the thing. So that's all we can hope for. We can also hope for the fact that maybe it won't self-destruct right away, you know, like somebody run a wheel into it or somebody forgets to put the, you know, pull the foot up. I could foresee that happening. And I'm telling you what, friends, if they do that, I'm not doing this again. Because that ain't going to be no fun to try to get that back off of there. You know, I put it on there to stay. I'm pulling and pushing as hard as I can, and it doesn't even try to move, so I think we're in good shape. But that jack will be much more stable and much more do the thing than the one that was on there. So, which if somebody wanted to restore it, the mount is still there. They could fool with that, but I'm not going to. So, job number 1 is done. Also, off camera, I torched that pin out of that bracket. It's a mess though, so I'm gonna have to really work to clean that up. And I don't have the, I need to go to town and get supplies for that. So I think we're gonna call this video here because it ended up more footage than I thought, just getting it this far. But that part's done, and I figured that that would probably take the longest, which it seems to have. That took a few hours to get everything the way I wanted it and do it the right way. So we're gonna leave that part there. And in the next video, we will tackle fixing that twine tie arm, mount the valve back up under there, the new hoses for that. And then is that it, friends? Oh no, those oil tanks. We got to figure that out too. So there's going to be at least one more video on this baler, if not 2, because I have a feeling that, I don't know, stuff just adds up quick as far as time goes. And then I'm going to get new hoses for this because that's got to happen. I'm not even fooling with this anymore. There's no point to it. Yeah, we're going to do this right so I don't have to hear about it, you know. I don't want any more failures in the middle of baling. And like these, that's just waiting to happen, friends. So it's got to happen. Now is the time. So we will get that stuff done. And I think I got his problem settled with, there was a belt jumping off. I do have a few new parts in the house that I ordered. We got to put on there. There's a belt behind this cover that would keep jumping off. And there was a spring missing. I got that. And what else? There was a bushing in that idler thing, I guess that. So we are probably going to have 2 more videos on this at least, if we do all that stuff. So, anywho's, I am going to call this video here, friends. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. After watching what you just saw, do you feel like your IQ has dropped lower than your credit score? Well, there's no reason that both of us should be miserable, so go ahead and hit that thumbs up and leave a comment. that stuff costs you nothing, and it really helps me out. Your banker may not approve, but I know mine will. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.